And welcome to the Inside Bristol podcast. My name's Andy Taylor, and I'm joined, as always, by Stuart and Isaac as we bring you our BUCS breakdown. We are going to look back at week 4 results and see what that's done to our thoughts in terms of writers' poll, which we'll break down last week's writers' poll because this week's will be due sometime over the next couple of days. And then we'll look ahead towards the week 5 fixtures this week, and then we will have a little update on last man standing, which is going swell. So I'm sure Stuart's looking forward to keeping you updated on that. But plenty of live streams this week, which was nice, wasn't it? I know, Isaac, you managed to student discount your way through the University of Nottingham paywalls, which was the theme of this weekend, wasn't it? But you enjoy what you saw nonetheless.
Yeah, exactly. 2 great games, which we'll speak about more in detail in a minute.
100%. And I know I saw some photos of Stuart's 3-box live streams at any one time, which I'm sure you enjoyed while you were relaxing, catching up with all things university football.
Red zone-esque triple box. Scott Hansen calls it, doesn't he? So yes, we'll come on to that in a bit. But yeah, watching more, taking in less, if I'm really honest.
Yeah, no witching hours and all this sort of stuff to entertain ourselves with, but nonetheless an entertaining week. So let's have a little look. Let's get fired into that straight away. So as always, we will start off with the Premiership tier. I'll press the wrong button there. So Isaac, I'll give you first dibs at here because there's plenty to talk about across this whole entire division. So where do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think we'll both want to talk about that gold UE game, won't we? All 3 of us really, but we'll start there. But that game was great, and I think they were both. It's like you can tell it's the start of the season for both of them. Yes, this is the 3rd game, but it's still quite like fresh into the year. This is only week 4. Both sides were ill-disciplined throughout. Nottingham in the first half, UE in the second, and it really ended up killing them. Really, comes down to the last drive again, like this game does pretty much every single year. Bar the national final, I think the last 2 games were exactly the same as this. It looks like Gold were at their best, and that UE either the travels affected them, or playing 3 games on the bounce has affected them, or something. And they just looked a bit lackluster, and that they're not the UE that we're used to seeing all the time, and that we have seen so far this season. Last drive of the game, they give up 30 plus yards worth of penalties, silly penalties. It's unsportsmanlike conduct to the sideline, it's face masks, it's pass interference calls, it's stuff that we don't expect from a national side in a way. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's something that teams of this caliber, we don't really look at that, especially with all the great talent that UE have got. But no, it's a great win for Nottingham. Again, how long can they go undefeated for? We saw them pretty much all the way through last season, bar the last game. So we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, if you take away that final, they've been separated by 10 points across the last 3 regular season games. And this is awfully familiar, isn't it, for Gold getting that regular season win at the beginning of the season. I suppose the big difference this year is that Gold got that win at home, away last year, and it's at home this year. So they're going to have to travel next time later in the season. And I haven't got that. Is that the last game again? Or is it second to last game? So week 12. So that's plenty of time for UE and their new recruits to settle into the system and so on. Do you think it's that? Do you think this is? I suppose for Gold, this is time to celebrate, but then it's time to use that as a springboard, isn't it, and not get too carried away. And you can guarantee that Jason Scott's going to not let them get carried away, right? But it's going to be easier said than done with the young players got. I suppose that the open-ended question to maybe you, Stuart, if you want to pick up here is that do you think this is any different, or do you reckon this could be, we've had similar sort of stories this season in summer with Bristol and the like. It's early on enough for UE to rectify it. It's early on enough for for Gold not to get too carried away either, isn't it?
Yeah, I think every single coach around the league will tell you it's just one standalone result. Every team just wants to go 1-0. If you focus on that and just then put the jigsaw pieces together, that's when your season comes to fruition in the playoff time. So as good as a result it is for Gold right now, they've not won anything. The ring's not on their finger. They haven't hoisted the trophy above their head right now. They're on to the next one. And I think that's what the coach in me is saying. What the coach in me was saying after I saw the result was the analytics. We know time in and time out that Bullets go for 2 every single time and Gold kick 1 point. Isaac might correct me, but I think Gold converted 3 of their 4 1-pointers, whereas UE converted 1 of their 4 2-pointers. And that ultimately makes the difference between this being a win or a loss for Gold or Bullets. Yeah, you add them all up, and over the course of a season, they probably even themselves out. But I just think in a game like this, where it's squeaky bum time all the way through, would you rather have an extra 4 points on the board, or do you want to leave points out in the field? And only the coaches on the sidelines can answer that question. But hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it, really? And if you've lost by a point, do you end up ruining that when you don't get 2? But then on the flip side, you can also return a blocked PAT, which happened at the end of the game. Bullets blocked 1 and very, very nearly returned it for 2 points, which would have won them the game, controversially. So, some you win, some you lose. I'm sure both squads have just gone, you know what? On to the next one.
They're going to have to, aren't they? Because UE are going to come back again, aren't they? And they're probably going to face each other 2 or 3 times. There's obviously another team to talk about that might be ready to upset the apple cart, but it feels like that we've just seen the final draft 1, almost like the first rehearsal. But we will see, obviously, as weeks go by. Stuart, is there anywhere else you want to take the discussion then? Or if you can either go back into Gold versus UE or away into another result that stands out to you?
I'll touch loosely on the bottom 3, if I'm really honest. Mustangs have sent us a message. I messaged them going, is the stream and the camera going to move? Because it was literally just on a solid camera. And they didn't realize that both end zones weren't included in this solid camera. So they've sent us a message going, oh, we didn't realize, we're sorry. But it's great to see them streaming. I didn't watch it intently because of the camera angle. It wasn't zooming, it wasn't panning and stuff like this. So, it's the first game that they've obviously tried it. It's good to see. But Warwick will be ridiculously happy that they've come away with a win in that victory. They also still have to go up to Newcastle, mind. But I think next game is hosting NTU in a couple of weeks' time, I think. I don't think Warwick play this weekend. So, yeah, they'll be really happy with that. And they sit atop the Prem North. And then the 2 games in the South, kind of big juxtapositions in these 2 games. Exeter put up a heck of a performance against Brunel. They're the first team that I've seen make Brunel do something different. The D line of Exeter were phenomenal. They really shut down the 2 backs that I mentioned last week, Davide and David Moore, for Brunel. So Brunel went, you know what? You've picked your poison here. You've shut down the run game. We'll just pass it deep. And they were successful in that as well. So Exeter then went, we're going to have to change our game plan here. Half time, they adjusted, but I think they moved a linebacker, if I'm correct, to sort of like a nickel type defender, and went sort of more cover 3-ish. But they took that guy out of the box, and Bruno went, we're going to run the ball on you now. And that's when the 2 running backs started to come into play again. So Brunel looked like an all-round outfit, and I think that's reflected in several people's writers' polls adjustments this week, which we'll come on to. And then the Cardiff SGS game, the first quarter was pretty decent, and then the heavens opened. It was a deluge. Speaking to a couple of SGS players, they said even the centre and QB exchange was dicey at times, and they just ended up handing the ball off, and one of their running backs got about 200 yards. Didn't score many points, as you can see. That finished 14-6 to Pride. But it grinds the clock down, doesn't it? It keeps the Cobras offense off the field, and it just puts them in a really good chance to win that game. I didn't give you out the other two scores. Warwick beat Northumbria 24-7, and Brunel won 37-20 against the Demons. So, yeah, some interesting scores, some really good scores, and some interesting ones in terms of the Writers' Poll as well.
Our audio listeners will be thankful for those scores for sure. If you are listening, come and join us on YouTube and join in the chat, because we have our graphics up that we can talk about as well. So please come and join us. There is one game we have not touched upon though, Isaac, which is the 77-0 trouncing that Durham took to Leeds.
Yeah.
There has been many a comment around the Leeds Beckett program, which at the moment is obviously hearsay. It's difficult to comment on with absolute certainty, but what is absolutely certain that a 77-0 win for Durham over Leeds Beckett is what UWE have been doing to Leeds Beckett. So what can we take away from this game?
The Durham are part of the party. You know, they was always looked at that as that middle ground, that third team, the one that, you know, will be in the playoffs but might not make the final. Whereas this year, you know, they've scored. If we count Leeds Beckett as like a, you know, as a, I don't know what you call it, but like as a marker, you know, they've scored the most points against them so far this season. Like they've got something, and I don't know whether that's, you know, there's rumours of Leeds Beckett losing some scholars and losing coaches and all sorts, but obviously we don't know. We're not in the program, but. Is it because of that? Is it just because Durham are that good? You know, they made a lot of signings in the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
They've made, you know, some of the signings they made as well look like really, you know, really good ones, like almost as if like scheme fit ones, and not just here's an American name. It's these are lads that we've recruited and we want, that kind of thing. So yeah, Durham are here to be part of the party. They're not here to, you know, finish runner up. They're here to, you know, take over.
Well, we talked about it last week, didn't we? I asked the question, you know, if you're going to sit UWE and Gold in that tier one in terms of our power rankings, if you like, or you know, ranking the teams across the country, who's going to be that next one? And we did wonder whether it was SGS or Durham, and then Durham came out the blocks and scored 77 on Leeds Beckett, who supposedly have recruited a bunch of great recruits around the country and across the globe. So it's a real statement. That first up, they've got a real big test in 2 weeks where they travel to UWE, and they've got Loughborough up this week. We'll talk about that in a little while, I'm sure. But that is a great start for Durham, isn't it? And their offense clicked immediately, and you can't take away the zero that their defense brought up as well. What a great start for them. Does it tell you more about Durham than Leeds at this stage? Are you going to put Durham in that tier one immediately, or are you going to hesitantly go, well, we'll put them near there, maybe put them in pencil in that top tier?
I think you got to wait till this weekend when they play Loughborough, really, because then the top three teams in divisions have both played Leeds Beckett and Loughborough, and then you can kind of get a guess of who's who and where people are when they play against the same sort of teams. So I think, yeah, they'll look good now. How good are they look in a week time when they face a Loughborough side that last year, you know, they got a win against them? So yeah, it's going to definitely be interesting.
Stuart, I've seen some power rankings out there that have put UWE below Durham. What say you?
I think it's bold. I think it's bold, if I'm honest. We've definitely got more data points on UWE than we do have of Durham. And yeah, I still have Durham in at 3 for me, Loughborough in at 4. The rest underneath get a little bit grey for me in terms of Prem National versus North South. But this weekend, Durham Loughborough, I think will tell me more about who's 3, who's 4, and how close 3 and 4 are to 1 and 2. But yeah, until we get that data point drawn, we're obviously just basing it off last year. And I think Durham have always proved that they are there or thereabouts in terms of bridging that gap between 1 and 2 and the rest. And yeah, once we find out this weekend what Durham versus Loughborough looks like, will be able to really sort of solidify the top 4. And then I think 5 through 15 is a little bit more grey for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll get on to that in a little while with the writers' poll for sure. Let's have a little look then at Tier 1. There was plenty of interesting results that happened across here. And fortunately, for what feels like the first BUCS week in a very long time, no postponements across this tier this week, which is great for all people involved. As I mentioned to Stuart offline, I do love a 6-0 scoreline, which I'm sure we will touch upon. Defense wins championships at the end of the day. Delighted to see some of these scores. Stuart, what do you want to touch on before I hand it over to Isaac?
You mentioned the 6-0. There definitely were no fireworks on show at that game, were there? That was also live streamed. That was on the Saturday night. The Birmingham Guild, Students Guild, put that on, and it is still on YouTube for people to go and watch. I'd maybe make your dinner or take a book or something with you, because honestly,
put it on the mini screen.
It's maybe start a slow cooker, if I'm really honest. It's it's not the most enjoyable and enthusiastic explosion that I've seen Birmingham involved with in years gone by. But full credit to Oxford Brooks. They are 3-0 in a new tier this season. And, they ground it down and they came away with a victory. It's just a shame that the one scoring play wasn't quite caught on camera either, which was a little bit frustrating. But it was just a deep pass down towards the near corner of the end zone.
You are not advertising to anyone.
One job.
It was it's a nice play, but you just can't see the guy that catches it and scores the touchdown. But fair play to them. They're top of that division, and looking like they're going to be a shoe-in for playoff football. I know it's quite early in the year, but unless something goes very Pete Tong, I don't think that's going to surprise anybody or saying that one. Brighton Kent, I said that was going to be a fairly close game based on the last couple of years that we've seen results from both teams, and it was. Again, Brighton ground out a 12-0 victory, and again looked like they could be fairly strong in the Southeastern Division. And Kent will just be looking to bounce back. They'll say, it's a quality opposition. We just take the L this time. And when they travel back down to us, or back up, isn't it, from Brighton to Kent, when they travel up to us, we'll just look to do better on the day. We'll take our learnings from and film and see where we can capitalise from that.
Yeah, it's kind of like it kind of pulled Brighton back to the pack a little bit in my mind. I think this was kind of where we were going to find out, was last week's result just a case of that they caught fire and they went really hard against UCL, winning 43-0, and now a 12-0 win tells me that Kent's defense is still there. That's what I remember from last year, was defense for Kent, but Brighton's offense clearly got reeled back by a good Kent team. And yeah, congratulations to Brighton, who are 2-0 to the start of their season. And to your point about OBU, I'm still reserving my thoughts until they play Hertfordshire, because I think that's their next biggest test, isn't it? Which we might be talking about a little later on. Isaac, what about yourself? Any of these stand out to you as well?
I mean, the Rams are doing what they do, really.
Yeah.
I think that, they last season we saw that they were doing this all of last season. Again, maybe they came up against Northumbria, who now obviously Prem side. That's the only side that they didn't do this to. But yeah, 50-0 against Edge Hill. It shows what they're out for this season. They want to get promoted. They want to make that step up, and this year could be the year for them. You look at their main contenders for it, and before the season started, you could probably say Liverpool, but they're losing. That's 2 on the trot now. They've lost that. They were 21-7 loss against Manchester, and it looks as if Liverpool and Edge Hill could be in that bottom fight really at the minute. And MMU, when they post a game, but it just seems like Liverpool and Edge Hill at the minute. That's going to be an interesting one, just to see where Liverpool are. Because is it just they've played 2 strong teams straight away, or is it just that they got promoted too quickly and now they're going back to their level in a way? Then you look at the
just to pause there, because I think that's I think they're really important points, aren't they? That we've seen MMU versus Edge Hill, so we know that there's a gap there already. That was an away game for MMU, so they've got to host Edge Hill next. It really already does feel as if it's shaped up to be Lancashire. They're going to run away with it. They've already got that win over Manchester. They've obviously got to travel to them, haven't they, towards the end of the year? But that'll be a tough game. But you just don't see them. You don't see them not scoring burger donuts every week, do you? And then, as you say, it's going to be who's going to go down Edge Hill or Liverpool. It feels like it's going to be one of them.
Or both. Well, and then you look at teams that could potentially going down, and all you need to do is look at Leicester. 0-3, not had the best showing in any games. You look at the Derby game now, 25-14 to the Derby Braves, and they kind of showing that they are now back in Tier 1. They're going to stay in Tier 1. And the last week in the game against Sheffield, I think Sheffield are just that strong that they can do that to teams. But no, Derby really showed that why they're going to battle against relegation, and it's always hard because in this one it's the 3 teams that go down from 2 divisions, isn't it? Because that's how we saw Coventry go down last year. So it's always a tricky, it's always a tricky one because it's like, you're looking at other divisions to make sure you're safe. But one team that certainly don't have to worry about that is Nottingham Green as well. They just, they did what they did. You can kind of tell at times that they're looking to run the same playbook as Gold. I think it's just so they have that link between the 2 programs and players can step in whenever needed and stuff like that. But they're playing.
It should be done, isn't it?
Exactly. But they're playing a style that in Tier 1 you don't normally see. It's very much a passing offense rather than a running one. They've got a good running game and they've got a great O-line as well, but they are passing it more than most teams would do in this tier. Sheffield Hallam, I think Nottingham Green wanted to take revenge from last year, beating them in the last week of the regular season and then beating them in the playoffs. So yeah, I think Nottingham Green have pretty much put a stamp down of we're going to challenge the Rams and we're going to challenge Edinburgh Napier and where we want to take it all the way.
Going to hold opinions on Sheffield Hallam at the moment. To have your first game away at Nottingham is never going to be easy. This game, if I remember correctly, was almost like the last game of the season last year, wasn't it?
It was reversed for the last game.
Was it?
Yeah, it was Hallam at home.
Right. Okay, and that was a close one. If not, Sheffield Hallam took that, I think, didn't they? So I'm gonna reserve judgment there. Nottingham Green have obviously had their warm up for this game, haven't they? The week before, and so yeah, we'll hold judgment there. But yeah, it looks like that. Sheffield Sabres, they're here, aren't they? Which is just awesome to see, and looking forward to seeing what they can do. As the weeks go by, and they've got a big one coming up this week, which will give us an idea of where they truly are. And the only game we haven't mentioned before we get out of here, which we won't touch upon in too much detail, is the Glasgow Tigers won 19-12 against Heriot-Watt, which keeps their unbeaten run going. They're 2-1. Sorry, I'm sure they were unbeaten, but obviously 2-1 in the Scottish division there as well. So, some really interesting results. Anything to add to Tier 1 before we get out of here? I think the only note that we've got... Go on.
2 points before we roll on, Andy. Isaac touched on the Derby Braves game. They were doing that as like a big charity event. They had their cheerleading squad down, and it was for the Sophie Lancaster Foundation. I knew it was around a charity, and I was just opening up pages. So they've got a Just Giving website on one of their social media posts that I'll try and share sort of the back end of this week so that people can go over. And they're just raising money to donate to that charity. It's around a couple who had their lives taken way too early in their 20s. So it's great to see the Derby Braves doing some work around that. And then in the Bournemouth game, there was quite a serious injury that I think has left one player needing an operation. I know that their head coach has shared something on his Facebook page, and I noticed that. And I just wanted to sort of make sure that they get a mention and just hope that everything went all right with the operation. They won't have a speedy recovery, but I hope their recovery goes well. And I know that they've got certainly a full team of Bobcats around them that if they need help, I'm sure that their team will pull up and support them and help them out. But yeah, the Bobcats certainly did a number on Bristol Barracuda as well, 48-8, didn't they? So they are 1 point away
just
from
realised-
eating up.
Yeah, I just realised we didn't talk about that division, so I pulled it back up again. Sorry.
Yeah, they're 1 point away from eating up their points deduction, and then I think they play this weekend. You noticed they've got like 5 games in a row, didn't you? So I think this weekend, if they win, they completely erase their points deficit, and they will go into positive points for the first time this season.
It's worse than that, guys. Not only are they doing 5 in a row, they're doing 7 in 9.
Jeez.
No, they're not. They're doing 7 in 8. They're doing 7 in 8. They've got one game off.
I think NTU gets like that now as well. I think they play 4 on the bounce or something.
That's tough going, isn't it?
Yeah.
Considering we'll talk about it later, but 2 of those games are against Plymouth, who we're expecting to be a tough matchup for them if last year's anything to go by. This is a tough task for that Bournemouth team, and I've no doubt that they'll do well. We'll talk about it in a little while about Writers' Poll. That they're showing that they're the real deal, but this is going to be, -7. 7 of your games are done by Christmas, by the looks of it. No, you get that break in 2 weeks for one game. Come back in December, and then you've got a break up until the game in January. So before Christmas, they will have played 6 games, which is incredible. It means they get an easy end of the season, but that's taxing for their players, isn't it? So best of luck to them, and I hope their player makes a speedy recovery for sure. It's always not nice to hear that.
You see, it's funny, you say it's an easy end to their season. They kind of lose momentum, though, if they're not playing games post-Christmas.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think that playing games weeks in, weeks out, especially when they need to win as much as what Bournemouth do, I think it only helps them, because it kind of thinks like, right,
true.
On to the next one, we need to win it. On to the next one, on to the next one. And it's that keep pushing, because I think if it's just, you have, like, let's take York St. John, for example, who don't play till week 7. If it's like that, it's hard to keep players not involved, but keep them like switched on, if you know what I mean. Like, basically, you're just trying to GM up for something that's so far in the distance. But I think this like kind of helps them, especially when on the same. If there was on the run like Leeds Becky, it wouldn't help them at all. But because they're as good as Bournemouth are and they're just winning, I think it helps their momentum a lot more.
If they can stay healthy. That's the thing with all of this, isn't it? It's staying healthy, which is the hard part, isn't it? So you just hope that they can, and it'll be a fine job if they get to Christmas 6-0, and you definitely wouldn't put it past them. They get to Christmas 6-0 with 2 games left after Christmas. That's an incredible start to that season. They would still only be they'd only have 5 points. And they're going to need a lot. I think I was thinking about the maths. They're going to need a lot of help across this southern tier to make the playoffs. So they'll be hoping everybody can beat each other within the other divisions, obviously. But it's going to be a really tough start to the season for them. And I just realised Bath Killers Bees beat Southampton 17-13. So a really good start for Bath. They are 1-1 now, but with that head-to-head over Southampton, great start for them. Right, failure on that one, nearly missed the Southwest. Let's hope we don't do the same for Tier 2. Let's have a quick gander at that. So across Tier 2, again, no postponements. Brilliant work, guys. Isaac, where are we going here first?
First of all, a massive congratulations to Salford. And we picked them up last week. It was their first game in BUCS, and they got their first win, which is always good as a new program. You don't want to start with a loss here. So, 30-8 victory over the Kiel Crusaders was huge for them in what looked like horrendous conditions. It looked awful, but no, I think they now can push that, and I think that in the pre-season we kind of saw that a lot of people had them quite high up on Tier 2 rankings and stuff like that, and they've kind of shown why. I'd like to see when they play the likes of LJMU and Staffs and Lancaster, how good they are. But no, it's definitely a good place for them to be. and then that draw. What the Northeast love a 12-12 draw, and it's annoying. It really is. Just someone kick an extra point. What's going on? Like, what? But at least like York are top of the division. Got 2 points because they've played 2 of the 3 drawn games. So that's great for them. But no, it definitely is an annoying one when you see a 12-12 draw.
And we might touch upon the fixture that's this week that might end up being the same. We'll have to wait and see what your opinions are before we get into that. But Stuart, let's have a look at the other parts of the card that, there's a couple of interesting results across the rest, isn't there?
The Southeast is proving to be just as bamboozling as it was last year. City St George and Greenwich played out another 12-12 draw. I think that's the 3rd of the season, isn't it? Which is, it's interesting to say the least. And then Essex Blades and Imperial was very close. Essex, I think, came down, if my memory serves me right, from last year. They add into a pot that's already full of competitive teams. So I think that's going to be one to keep our eye on and see how the data points play out. Essex lost to Imperial 12-19 for our listeners. I must keep remembering to say that. Imperial off to a not quite immortal start, shall we say? But they certainly managed to get the 2 points on the board. Just to add to Isaac's congratulations, Salford Storm will have a bit of a chat with us on Instagram afterwards. They said it was really tough going, but Kiel put up a hell of a fight in that. Apparently, like the 30 points was really hard fought. It wasn't just sort of Salford having it all their own way. And Salford's MVP, they say, Kelly Ajay, had 2 touchdowns and rushed for over 100 yards. And in that sort of condition, rushing for 100 yards is absolutely mental, because if you've ever tried to run on sand, I think that's what it was like, judging by the mud that was on the sideline at Kiel's ground. I've officiated at that ground, and I'm glad I wore black because the dirt hardly showed up on it. Playing in kit like that, I can only imagine how bad it was for their laundry department to try and get that clean. So fair play.
They put a graphic up with their QB, and he just had muddied legs, and there was just mud all over him. There wasn't even a clean snip for them to use for their graphics. So not surprising there. ARU, should we touch upon ARU's 35-6 win over DMU as well? I think ARU didn't have the greatest of years last year, did they? If memory serves. Quickly rush for that 1-5 last year. They're now 2-0. Okay. Quickly skipping between 2-0 now. That's a change, isn't it? Okay, let's hold the celebrations a bit too much. Let's not get too carried away. The 1 point win over Lincoln, but it was De Montfort that they beat. But that stands out to me. That's a great start for ARU, isn't it? For this season, and puts them 2-0, top of the division, waiting to see what everybody else is going to do across the division, because Cambridge beat Coventry Jets 6-0. So do we know anything more about this division other than it's going to be a fight, a fight for the top between potentially Cambridge and ARU?
Yeah, and Lincoln potentially, and
Lincoln when they come back.
Yeah, I think that's what we kind of previewed at the start of the year, that because there's no huge team, there isn't a Derby, there isn't a Nottingham Green anymore. It's ARU, Lincoln's, and Cambridge's to take. Potentially Coventry's as well, but we never know what Coventry are like. Sometimes they're a bit of a hot and cold team in years. So they'll have a really, really good year where they get promoted to the Prem North, and then all of a sudden it's slow tumble back down the leagues. And I think that last week, if you remember, we talked about how Birmingham wouldn't be one of them teams where they stay in the tier 1, tier 2, rather than being back in the Prem where they arguably belong. And Coventry has got to answer that question whenever they next play. But definitely, I think the two that are currently going for are the three, ARU, Lincoln, and Cambridge. And I think them three are definitely going to take it all the way down to the wire.
And ARU have already got a 1-up on one of those teams, so a great position to start for ARU, isn't it? And the last fixture we haven't talked about there was Royal Holloway got a 12-6 victory over Solent. So a close fought victory there for Royal Holloway. Not much more to add to that, really. We don't really know what that means, but we will see over the coming weeks whether Royal Holloway can use that as a springboard for the rest of the season. Hopefully, I'll be cheering on Solent this year. I'll be hoping that they can get a victory on the board. They went 0-4 last year, didn't they? Let's see if we can get that victory. I'll be watching it, intently cheering them on to get that. But maybe Royal Holloway is one that they'd hoped that they would have been able to have got a victory over. But anything else to add?
Now you can say Solent correctly.
Now I can say Solent. Yeah.
Two more things to add before we roll on. One thing that Coventry won't have to come up against next time is a bagpiper on their sideline. Completely random. I don't know whether any of you saw it on any socials, but there was a bagpiper on the Coventry Jets sideline that apparently decided to play whenever Coventry were on offense. So make of that what you will.
I love the commitment. I love the commitment. Cambridge, well played, guys.
That is native to Cambridge.
Hey, Cambridge University is a smart place. That they might have like a bagpipe choir or something. Who knows?
Say no more. And also DMU put out quite a long statement on their socials this weekend. One of their players also had an injury where he lost consciousness on the field for a small period, they do say. But he did stay in a hospital in Cambridge overnight for observations and checks. By all accounts, he's doing well. And in good spirits, their statement says, but they're really sort of thankful and appreciative of the medical staff at the game, as well as ARU staff who helped support the player through it and stuff. So it looks quite resounding for ARU sort of on the field, but I think there's a little bit more around that game that just shows that sort of football and health come into play a little bit more than the results sometimes. So yeah, it's, when we hear stories and see stories like this is the sort of stuff that we want to share. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we mention those and give the people that want the shout out and need the shout out and the thanks get it.
Yeah, 100%. I hope all recover well. It's always a difficult time for any program to have these difficult injuries and try and bounce back from them and complete a game at the same time, isn't it? So, yeah, absolutely. Great start to BUCS. We're already done with week 4 and we're heading on to week 5. But before we do get to week 5 fixtures and have a little look ahead, let's try and break down the writers' poll that came out. Was it late Friday, early Saturday? I can't remember when it was, but it was certainly later in the week, wasn't it? And there was some movers and shakers across the writers' poll, which is obviously to remind everybody, the 3 organisations get together, we ballot 25 teams, it's pointed up, and then we come up with 25, the top 25, and then you can start shouting at us for getting it all wrong. And it was great to see the interaction that we had with certainly the poll that we put out, and some opinions about, I think I saw Kent were too low from somebody. Still sleeping on Newcastle. I knew who that was off because we've heard it every week, and I'm sure he's listening and will smile and not name you. And we also have somebody said that, someone presumably from the Eagles said that MMU are still better than Man Met. I still shared that even though they had just lost. But anyway, let's have
I don't know if they lost because I don't remember watching the end of the game, Andy. What happened at the end of the game?
What happened? It all stopped at half-time.
Versus Manchester. What happened,
It was 14-0 and then it was 16-14.
I don't know. I didn't watch it. I don't believe that's true.
I don't know, Jeff. Has it?
I don't know, Jeff.
Has it? I don't know. I wasn't watching. Must have missed it.
Right, top of the writers' poll. Let's have a look, and then we can give our thoughts on it, can't we? This is obviously prior to this weekend, so this is a week 3 writers' poll. So let's touch upon what we thought of what happened following week 2, but also how we think this might be affected going into this week's writers' poll. So, Isaac, do you want to have a first dibs here? So we saw Brunel at 4, stick and twist there, but Warwick jumped up into the top 5 ahead of this weekend. Interesting. Anything you're expecting to change or differ this week?
I mean, I'm shocked that Warwick had jumped up to 2 spots to 5th. I thought SGS still deserved to be there. They are still.
They ain't done anything to drop. Yeah.
Exactly. They haven't done anything. They haven't done anything.
In my mind, anyway.
Yeah. But no, this week definitely to change. I could see Nottingham and UWE flipping. I could also see Durham potentially jumping above UWE in a couple of polls, just because of how well they played against Beckett. I could see Brunel staying where they are. And then again, I could see Warwick either staying or maybe SGS coming up, but more likely Warwick to stay after their performance against Northumbria.
Because if you take that result on the face of it, they only beat Cardiff by 8 points, that being SGS. So you can understand why it might stay the same. Stuart, how surprised would you be if UE don't flip with Nottingham?
If they don't flip,
Again,
I think it comes back. Yeah, I think for me it comes back to that it's only one game type thing. It's 1 point in one game. If they don't flip, it really wouldn't surprise me. And if they do flip again, it wouldn't surprise me because people will go, "Oh, gold beat bullets. Let's quick jump on the flip train." Again, I think 1 and 2 will be interchangeable until we see that second game and we see more data points against more teams. I think for now it's kind of, put them in at 1 or 2 and we're fine. 3, 4, and 5 again, I think I'm fairly happy with. After this weekend, after Loughborough have not Loughborough, after Durham have tonked Leeds, do they go back in? Have they proved themselves as like a Prem national team? Will they sort of bump Brunel and Warwick down? Potentially. I don't know where everyone else is thinking, but yeah, maybe I keep wanting to call them Loughborough. Geez. Maybe Durham come back up and we see this shake a little bit. As I said, 1 to 4 and then 5 to 15 is a bit grey. So, yeah, I think this has the potential. I'm going to sit on the fence and do a full pulse goals. It has the potential to stay the same. No, it was Michael Owen, isn't it, who states the obvious. It has the potential to stay the same, but it could also change.
Yeah, that is a full-on James Milner. And so, I think what's for me, the one thing I apply to my ballot all the time is if you've beaten them on the field, you can't be below them. And so, in my mind, I know UE have done it all for many, many years, but Gold have got the on the field result now, haven't they? So they must be above UE in my mind. So they will be on my ballot for now, and it'll stay that way until the results change otherwise. So I will be interested. My interesting point will be to see where Durham ends up, because how much are they going to really put on that 77-0 surprise win? Because it might not be the win, it's certainly the result that's quite surprising there in my mind. So will they get a nudge up? We don't get points. Obviously, we don't get told points for the poll, but it'll be interesting to see how many more of a 1 or 2 place points they got for Durham. But otherwise, I don't expect this to change at all, really. Let's have a look at the 6 to 15. So 6 to 15, Loughborough, SGS, NTU. Surprised to see NTU up at 8. We'll discuss that in a second. And Northumbria and Leeds Beckett round out the top 10 before we get to the next 5. I found it surprising to find NTU in the top 10 in the country, but certainly after the preview sort of conversations that we'd had, Isaac, but I'm clearly on my own there. What's your thoughts?
Atkinson's got him playing. That the QB. He did it at the Bradford Bears. Now doing it at the NTU Renegades. We coach him well. But no, I think it is a surprise, but it isn't a surprise. Like they've beaten Northumbria 9th. Therefore, NTU have to go above them, in my opinion. I think the big shot there is Pride at 7. Really. Pride being lower than Loughborough is quite a shock. It's tough, isn't it? Because it's like you got to think like if there was on the pitch, would SGS beat Loughborough? And I think they would, but I think it'd be close because SGS at the minute aren't playing like SGS play, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that there's the only shot. This week, I could see that probably flipping. I could see Northumbria potentially dropping some places after their loss at Warwick. And then the glaring obvious one, Leeds Beckett, will drop a lot, I believe, potentially out of it.
It'll be interesting to see what people do with Leeds Beckett for sure, because they are still a Prem national side, by default, certainly this year. But that's the way the competition rules happen. And then obviously we don't know what's happening, but the on the field results are not looking great. Quickly on the next 5 then, Edinburgh Napier in at 11, Cardiff 12, Exeter 13, Newcastle 14, and Lancashire, who we still call UClan, at 15. Stuart, the Rams. What? Any shocks here? Any surprises? Certainly no surprise to me seeing Edinburgh Napier come up the rankings after their fiery start. But anything else here to touch upon?
I don't think when this was released, I don't think there were any shocks. We obviously didn't know too much about Cardiff, Exeter, Newcastle. But I think though certainly Cardiff and Exeter, I think, bump up following this weekend's results. Yes, they both lost, but Exeter put up a heck of a good performance against Brunel, putting up 20 points and sort of making Brunel change. So I think we'll see Exeter move up. Same with Cardiff in awful conditions. They still sort of held SGS. So again, I think they've done their stock some sort of, they've increased their value a little bit. And yeah, I think it comes back to how do people drop Beckett? How far? Do they literally just completely dump them because they've heard the rumours of players and coaches going and that 77-0 drubbing? Or do they think actually they are Premiership team by default, as you said? Do we keep them above the likes of Napier, who are tier 1, against Lancashire, who are tier 1? Do we keep them in sort of the top 15 and then start 15 down or 16 down from tier 1? It'd be interesting to see what everyone else has done. I know what I've done, and it's controversial, but
I know what I've done.
That's what football's for, isn't it?
I know what I've done.
You're out of here.
Pretty much. I think it's hard to. Well, they've been the worst team in BUCS for the last 2 years. Yes, they've been playing the best competition and they've been playing the best teams, but if you're playing the best, you've got to act the best as well. And I think that losing the coaches they have done. I think 2 weeks before the season start, there's rumours that 2 weeks before the season start, they lost their OC, they've lost a bunch of their Americans. That they're not one of the best 25 teams in the country anymore. I genuinely think
0-3. Sorry, Isaac.
A lot of tier 1 sides could beat them. You look at Nottingham Gold, you look at Napier, you look at the Rams, and potentially even like Sheffield. You've got teams that you wouldn't expect to be beating Leeds Beckett, but after what they're showing, they definitely could.
It'll be surprising to see what people think. They're 0-3 at the end of the day. So if this writers poll had a graphic with their results next to them, they would be they'd be in the top 15 with 0-3 next to them, right? But I try and power rank it in a way. In a sense, how do I feel that Leeds Beckett would do against some of these? The only thing I wanted to touch upon in this section is that, because it was a complete difference from my ballot, is that Bournemouth aren't in the top 15. And considering that this is obviously an averaging out of a number of ballots, there's clearly some people out there that are really, really low on Bournemouth. Considering I know where I put them in mine. I'll be interested to see the movement of Bournemouth this week to see if they make it onto this page of the writers' poll for sure. I'm pretty sure they appear on the next page, 18th. So a real big difference between my ballot. But let's go through these last, and we'll just touch upon it briefly. We've got Leeds at 16, OBU at 17, Bournemouth at 18, Portsmouth at 19, the lowest ranked Premiership side, coming in at 19th. To your point, Isaac, around where they fit. Sheffield Sabres at 20, new in. Edinburgh Mavericks there, 21. Nottingham Green, Manchester Tyrants, new in. MMU Eagles and Kent Falcons as well. Just hang on to the top 25. So new entrances this week with Sheffield and Edinburgh and Manchester. And obviously we've got the week 4 results to think about as well. Any notes on this, Stuart, based on what you see and what you know now we've got week 4 in the bag?
In terms of a week 3 writers poll, I think it's fair. I think I'm fairly okay with it. I'm sort of alt and tabbing between my week 3 ones. It's fairly similar, just in slightly different orders, and I think I'm okay with it. What we know after week 4, I think there'll be a few movers and shakers. I don't think we might see 1 or 2 new teams come in. I think this will just change order. We might see 1 or 2 new teams. Eagles may drop out. Kent depends if they're a fringe team. They're obviously on the fall. In this one, they may drop out. So yeah, I think we'll see similar logos, just in different positions, and maybe 1 or 2 new teams this week rather than the 3 that we saw last week.
Well, I didn't have Edinburgh on my ballot last week. They are on it this week, so I would suspect that they will hang on certainly at 2-0. There would be no reason why they shouldn't. I had KCL on my ballot this week, so be interesting to see whether they make an appearance. They're probably the only new team that aren't showing on this graphic that I've got on my ballot this week. Isaac, anything from you?
I think Brooks and Bournemouth are quite low on this one.
I feel they are. That's certainly my opinion.
I think they definitely deserve to be in the top 15. I don't know what Leeds have done to be able to be bumped up to from week 3. They didn't play, and all the other Prem sides have done, and they're still on 2. I think that we could see the likes of Nottingham Green, who got bumped down 1, which after this week, I think they'll go back up. Manchester will go up. I think that, I think there could be a couple of new teams. And hopefully soon we start seeing some tier 2 teams. I'm going to keep pushing for that. I'm going to keep putting in mind just to eventually get 1.
You're just going to keep forgetting tier 1 teams just so you can get tier 2 in there, aren't you? That's what you're going to do.
My only thing is, if as soon as a side goes 0-3 or 0-2, do they deserve to be in the top 23? Potentially not. So I think there's a couple of sides that that will get bumped down because yes, they're in the Premier North or South, but they're not winning. They won't be in there for much longer.
For sure. Yeah. It's interesting. No real sort of general questions to ask you guys. I did, talked about last week the different tiers that I've got in my head. I bumped up NTU and OBU a tier in my mind based on results. And then there's just that sort of, you can almost say 20 to 35. It could just be any order at any point, really, couldn't it? At the moment, top of tier 2 and bottom of tier 1 kind of merging within itself. So maybe we should start a campaign, Isaac, and get a tier 2 team at number 25 at least. Who would it be for you?
Me, I put a couple in.
UE2, ARU, Imperial.
I put UE2 and ARU both in. So we'll
Imperial. They would have a shout. They're the only 2-0 side.
I don't know where it is, so unfortunately, guys, I'm sorry. If you could educate me, I'd love that, but I'm not got a clue.
Jesus, let's hope there's some southern writers who are adding to this poll, then, eh? Otherwise, the South is screwed. Yeah, 100%.
Depth charts have a couple, to be fair.
Thank God for that. Anyway, we've got 6 minutes to do a preview. Let's have a little look to see what we can do with the preview. Let's have a look towards week 5 as we are just rolling on in this season for sure. In the Prem, we have only a few fixtures this weekend, actually. So, Stuart, I'll give you first dibs. Which game? Let's try and keep it concise. Are you looking forward to maybe the most out of this tier?
I'm so close to going to SGS Brunel. I just don't think I'm going to have time between my lads' rugby tournament and the kickoff, because I'm led to believe it's 12 o'clock kickoff in Bristol, and I'm an hour north of Bristol, so I just don't quite think I'm going to get there. So I might have to go and watch some Division 2 football instead, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, I'm just hoping that the weather holds out, because it's right next to the River Severn, and we all know what that does when it rains. But yeah, for me, this is going to prove, are Brunel for real? Are SGS struggling? Are they actually back? Have they gelled? So yeah, for me, this is going to be the make or break of that sort of grey area that I'm saying 5 to 15 in our writers' poll. It's just whether SGS defense can stop that sort of dual threat pass run offense of the Burners, and can the Burners defense hold out against SGS, who are finding their head of steam. I know the weather was awful, but their run game looked really, really sort of good. It's just whether the QB can sort of sit in the pocket and pass the ball. I know he's got sort of quite hot feet and likes to scramble. He's actually one of my ex-youth players from Sandwell, who's now playing QB at Pride. And I've been speaking to him a little bit about a few things. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether they can pull that victory out of the bag against the Burners.
40 points a game offense versus a 3 points a game defense, isn't it? That's what that is. And as you say, if Pride take this victory, we are not going to ding Brunel too much, but we're going to probably rethink the heights of this, and then we'll probably be putting a medal half on SGS at this point, wouldn't we, in the south? It's a real big game to come up in week 5, isn't it? This is a big game for both sides. Obviously, there's a reverse fixture, but it feels huge already. Isaac, what about you?
I think that Premiership North game, NTU against Newcastle, it kind of is a big game for both. Newcastle got the win in their first game at Leeds. They've had 4 weeks off now, which seems like forever in the world of BUCS. NTU, they've had a week off, after their win against Northumbria. So again, it's going to be a good game to see where both sides are.
Yeah, who's going to keep up Warwick, right?
Yeah.
Because NTU have already got that loss, and then Newcastle, if they can come away with a win, then they're certainly going to be up there, aren't they? And they're going to feel confident with this.
And for both sides, this starts a run of like 4 or 5 games on a bounce for both sides. I think they'll go until like in the middle of December, where the next, where the next don't play again.
No, you did right.
So it's this game can either start a really good run or start a really bad run. It just depends on which side's going to come out.
Yeah, actually, I wonder whether our spreadsheet isn't up to date. We've got Northumbrian, NTU, Newcastle. Anyway, it looks like they're actually playing every single week between now and the end of the season, by the looks of it, which is just incredible to think on a quick look. Anyway, let's head it over to T1. Wow, that's a lot of games. So we've got plenty going on. Isaac, I'll give you first dibs here. Any stand out to you that you want to highlight going into week 5 in T1?
I'll pick 2 quickly. Liverpool and MMU. It's going to be really interesting to see where these 2 teams are. MMU got their important win against Edge Hill.
That 3-way you're talking about, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. This is the way we start to see it. Liverpool need a win. MMU have got a win if they get another one. It kind of sort of helps them a little bit more. Like it steadies the ship a little bit for now. And then that other one's that Sheffield derby, which we see it in varsity most years, but in a league match, in a match that means something, it could just add that little bit of extra spice.
Yeah, it's a tough first 2 games for Sheffield Hallam, isn't it, to kind of get their season going? Sheffield have had a run up Sheffield Sabres have had a run up towards this game, haven't they? And Hallam fell short against Green last week. Then they've got this derby that's tricky, isn't it? So they'll do well to come out with this 1-1 and then get their season up and running. That's certainly a humdinger in the Midlands, isn't it? To start off, Stuart, where do you want to go? What games do you want to highlight this week?
Now my Wi-Fi's come back on board. We're all good. I'll highlight both the games in the Scottish. I think that's where we will really start to see separation in that division now after these two games. Are the two Edinburgh teams for real at the top of that division? Or can Stirling and Heriot Watt sort of come back into contention with the rest of the 4-point teams? And also the Southern Division, the 1A, with Pirates and Oxford at the bottom and Hearts and Brooks at the top. They'll both be looking to take wins against each other. So, yeah, I'm looking for the two games in the Scottish and the two games in the Southern. Couldn't be much further apart in terms of geography. But, yeah, they're my sort of 4 highlights of this division.
Yeah, 100%.
Tier,
yeah,
not division.
Yeah, tier. Yeah, no. Plymouth Bournemouth feels like it's a big one. If Plymouth are the team that we think they are, and probably should be. They were obviously promoted from Tier 2 last year with a really stingy defense, but they're coming up against a Bournemouth side who are just really good, right? So I think this will mean that Bournemouth have basically ran the table. If they come away with a win this week, and then that OBU Hearts, I think, last test of the first half of the season, and it'll give them a lot of confidence if they can come away from that 6-0 victory this week against Hertfordshire. But that they'll absolutely have something to say about it, Hearts, won't they, with some of the players that they've got, certainly out of the London Blitz programme, to say the least. Anything else you want to touch upon before we move on to Tier 2?
Did Isaac mention the Sheffield Steel City derby while my Wi-Fi was refreshing?
Yes.
Yeah, we covered that in depth.
That's fine.
We felt that it was a big one.
Good.
For sure. Tier 2.
A
few more games.
I'll listen back on the podcast while I edit it.
Yeah, absolutely. Tier 2 then, Stuart, while your Wi-Fi is still here, where are you heading? What you want to highlight this week?
We finally get to see Surrey versus Solent. That game's the postponed one from, I think it was week 2. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what those two teams do against each other. And then the Southeast is always going to have my attention, based on whatever shenanigans is going on down there, and how QMBL come up against Greenwich, or City against Essex. Again, can Essex be sort of that new team in that division that people are trying to still feel out? Again, City are kind of there or thereabouts. We don't really know with that tie against Greenwich. So, what's really going to happen? Do we know? And then Greenwich Quimble, an 0-1-0 team against an 0-0-1 team. It's just feeling out more data points for us in the Southeast, isn't it? So, yeah, that tier is going to be, data point. Okay, put it together, see what we get.
Yeah, I'm sure Isaac's going to go Northeast.
I can't wait for another 12-12 draw, guys. I'm so excited. The Yorkshire Chariots 12, Sunderland Spartans 12. Yes!
What are the odds, Isaac? What are the odds?
Oh, it's got to be up there, isn't it? It can't happen again. But the words
at the end of the day,
it can.
At the end of the day, Isaac, if you pick one of these guys in your last man standing, you've got a 2 out of 3 chance that it's going to go all right for you, and you'll still be in it.
I mean, yes, but at the same time, I probably still end up picking the wrong one. No, but you look at the Sunderland Spartans. They've recruited well. We've said it all season long. They need to start showing the kind of players that they are. York have looked like York, sound team. They need to find that extra gear and see if they can do it. And also, we see LJMU in Tier 2.
I know.
That's big, and they've got staffs up first. I don't know what kind of game that's going to be. It depends how many people the Fury have retained. I know a lot of the guys got experience in the summer with the likes of the Nighthawks, for example. I know a couple of players who played there. I think they've got a lad who used to coach at the Bears as well. So yeah, I think that LJMU, it could be a good bounce back year for them. But again, it's going to be a real test to see where Staffs are. They're already 0-1 after they lost to Lancaster. So could it be an early season kind of done for Staffs? And LJMU show, that they are a Tier 1 side that had an off year last year.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that York and Sunderland's really important as well because of head-to-head. They've already got that draw between each other, haven't they? You know, if one of them comes away with a victory this week, then that's the head-to-head done against who you said were the two favourites for the division. So a really big game there. And I'm sure that tier 2 team, the game that you were talking about, is that Worcester UE Bullets 2 game that is potentially on the viewership for yourself.
Yeah, it may well be. All depends on family and weather, but yeah, 80% sure that I'll get across to it. I've got friends on both teams, and it'll be interesting to see. They've got new ground as well, so it's a bit of a drive for me, but we'll enjoy that nonetheless.
Yeah, brilliant, awesome. Anything on tier 2 before we get out of here? No, awesome. Stuart, you wanted to give an update on Last Man Standing, which is still going strong. We've still got people in it.
Very quickly, I shall hold my hands up and say that I am now working in a extremely busy coffee shop again, so I didn't get the story out till late. I hope that didn't affect too many people. I did extend it to 4 o'clock on Saturday, so I gave you an extra sort of 4 hours that you may have lost. We did lose 5 people through not submitting a vote this week, so I hope that those 5 didn't miss out. If you guys submit this week, I may be lenient, I may not. We'll probably have a chat about it inside Britball Towers and see what we think. But we're now down to 9. We're now down to 9 people who have submitted correct or postponed or tied teams, and yeah, we're slowly whittling you down. So that will go out on Friday. You've got another 44 teams to choose from because there's 22 fixtures. So choose wisely. Somebody has actually messaged us and asked for their picks so far. Please try and keep hold of them yourself. I do have every single one on a spreadsheet, and I may well message you back in the next 48 hours with who your 3 picks are for this season. But yeah, please try and keep hold of them yourself so that I don't then have to dip into the spreadsheet. But this weekend, good luck. We'll see where we go.
I can't remember my 3. That's all. Number 2. I can remember 2 of my 3, and that's it. No, I can't remember all 3.
All I'll say is you've gone for pretty obvious ones, so that's
pretty much so far. Yeah, exactly. But I'm still in.
What are we going to do if he wins it? Can't give him it, can we?
Yeah.
Don't know. We didn't actually write it into the terms and conditions, did we?
Exactly.
We'll see. Might just flip a coin or draw it out of a hat.
Buy a load of IBB merch. That's what I'll do. Like everyone else would do with their EP Sports gift card.
Yeah. And we'll reinvest it into the community again. Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. Is there anything else that we need to get to before we get out of here? Any on the field stuff that we can't miss?
Don't think so.
No, me neither. Certainly we'll have the Champions pods out very soon for Rushmore. We are recording next week for that, so we'll get that out ASAP for the under-16s contact. And I know next week is also going to be the Glasgow Hornets Champions Series pod as well, which would be great. So it'll be awesome to get their insights. Feels like we're doing it year on year with Rushmore at the moment at youth level, isn't it? But it'll be really good to catch up with them. So please look out for them. Anything else that I need to get to? Obviously the WFFL guys will be back very soon with their review. Their pod is out. They looked back on the last game day that came out last week, didn't it? So head over to our YouTube channel. So if you are listening or if you are watching live, please go over to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe. We will give you more and more content, more and more interviews and insight into the sport that we love. I think that's it for now, isn't it? There's plenty to talk about with news and stuff, but we'll find a quiet week to bring them up because there's plenty to talk about in the world of British American football that we can't fit in more than an hour and 10 minutes. So I think we'll leave it there, chaps. Stuart, Isaac, thank you very much for joining me once again. Thank you for those who have joined us live. Please join in the chat. And thank you for those who are listening or watching back. We will be back again next week to talk about week 5 and look towards week 6 of the BUCS 2025-2026 season. Cheers, guys. Thanks for now. Ta-da.